All right, let's get into it. Today, we are breaking down a timeless and, let's be honest, a pretty ruthless Machiavellian law of power. Why you should never react first. In a world that's all about instant responses, this is a huge lesson in strategic patience. So let's just jump right into the big paradox here, right? It feels like acting first, reacting fast, is a sign of strength. But what we're about to see is that it's the absolute opposite. The person who reacts has already walked straight into a trap, and they don't even know it's been set. This is really the heart of the problem, that immediate gut reaction isn't a power move. It's a massive strategic mistake. It's a trap, and you're the one who springs it on yourself with your own impulses. Look at this. It really lays out the two paths you can take. On one side, you've got reaction, and what comes with it? Vulnerability, impulse, basically just being subordinate. When you react, you are submitting. You're letting your opponent call the shots on when and where the fight happens. But then look at the other side, decision. That's where the real power is. That's strategy. That's dominance. Think about it. When you react on impulse, you're basically handing your opponent a gift. You're telling them, yep, you got me. You show your emotional cards, you expose your weak spots, and worst of all, you literally hand over the controls to them. You're giving them the blueprint for how to beat you. Reacting in that moment, it just shatters this critical aura of intoccabilità. It's this brilliant Italian word for untouchability. It's like this invisible armor that leaders have. The second you lash out, you prove to everyone that you can be provoked, that your strings can be pulled. You prove you're not untouchable at all. So, if reacting is a huge mistake, what's the move? Well, this brings us to the most powerful tool in your arsenal, strategic silence. And you've got to understand, this isn't about being passive. Oh no, this is an offensive weapon. I mean, come on, how great is that? Silence isn't about weakness, it's not about running away, it's an offensive tool. It's a psychological trap that you are actively setting. It's a blade you're sharpening while your opponent is just flailing around getting tired. You know how they say nature abhors a vacuum? Well, so do tense conversations. When you stay calm and quiet, your opponent feels this intense, almost painful pressure to fill that void. They just have to justify what they did, to explain themselves, to just keep talking. And what happens when they keep talking? They start to reveal everything. They spill their true intentions, their fears, what's really driving them. You're just sitting there gathering critical intelligence without saying a single word. And this is the beautiful result. It's a really simple equation. You gain information, you gain strength just by listening. And they get weaker with every single word they say. They are literally bleeding out strategic information, all while you stay perfectly composed and in control. This all leads to something called the mental cage. Your complete calm becomes a prison for them. They're trapped. They're stuck fighting ghosts, wrestling with their own frustration and their own anxiety that's just building and building, all because you simply refuse to play their game. Okay, but silence isn't the final goal. It's the setup. It's the preparation. It's where you gather your intel and wait for that absolutely perfect moment to make your final decisive move. This is the calculated counterattack. Now, it is so important to get this straight. This is not about blind revenge. Look at the two columns. Vengeance is all emotion. It's a hot fire that just wants satisfaction right now, and it burns out fast. A counterattack, though, that's strategic. It's cold, it's calculated, and it's aiming for a lasting victory that actually builds your power. See, this isn't an impulse. It's a method, a three-step masterstroke. First, you just observe. You let your opponent completely exhaust themselves against your wall of silence. Second, you wait. You pick the exact moment they are at their absolute weakest. And only then, step 3, do you strike. And not with sloppy rage, but with cold, surgical precision. And this is why having the last word is so incredibly powerful. By speaking last, after all that observation and waiting, you don't just win the argument. You get to impose your story on what happened. You define the truth of the situation for everyone else, and you come out looking like the ultimate authority. So you see how all these pieces, resisting that impulse, using silence as a weapon, and planning that perfect counterattack, come together? They forge you into the ultimate state, being psychologically untouchable. You know, mastering this whole idea is really an act of supreme self-discipline. It's about control. Because the person who can dominate their own impulses can dominate anyone else. The fight out there gets a whole lot easier once you've won the battle in here. It really all boils down to this fundamental code of power. This is the big difference between people who are ruled by events and people who ruled the events themselves. Power isn't noise, it's silence. It isn't haste, it's patience. It is always a decision, never, ever a reaction. Ultimately, this whole strategy is about one thing: seizing control of time, of the tempo. When you refuse to react, you make everyone else dance to your rhythm. You stop being a character in their little drama, and you become the director of the whole show. So we'll leave you with that thought. The next time you feel provoked, and you will, remember what we talked about here. Remember that the first to react is always the first to fall. So the real question is, in your next battle, who's going to be setting the tempo? You or them?